on Instagram and Facebook. Good afternoon, Facebook family. We are here. We are here. Our guest make it. He did make it. He is here. Our honorable is here. We are honored to have him. We are very honored to have him. If you can hear me clearly, please send me a message. Send me a message, family. Send me a message. Yes, I just want to know we are clear to go. Anybody there? We are ready to go. Can I have somebody said we are good to go? Just one. All right. Good. Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Suso. Are we good? Yes. Okay. Am I clear? All right. I appreciate everybody. Let's give a moment of silence, please. We're going to be talking about COVID-19. We have lost a lot of people around the world and home. ولو فتحنا عليهم بابا من السماء فظلوا فيه يعرجون لقالوا إنما سكرت أبصارنا بل نحن قوم مسحورون. All right, we are here. Our guest is here. Our guest is here. Please log in. We want to hear this important discussion today, this afternoon, Monday, August the 24th. Please come in. All right. I'm now going to introduce our guest. Our guest is the National Assembly member for the Republic of the Gambia, Serekunda East.
Serekunda.
Yeah, Serekunda. Thank you. Serekunda. And PDOIS Party Secretary General. Okay, we are good. We are good, Honorable. Okay, now I'm good. Settled. We have the guest. We have him. Honorable Halifa Sallah is here to discuss COVID-19. It's all around the world, but Gambia in particular today. We are not talking about any other country but Gambia. And we will have few questions for him. He will do the best he could to answer some of us. Honorable Sallah, you are welcome to Binto Bantaba Network. We are honored to have you. We the Gambians in the diaspora and Gambians in the Gambia. We are on Facebook right now live. You are welcome.
Thank you very much.
Can you guys hear him? I think we are good to go. Mr. Sallah, COVID-19 started since March. Some people have denied. Most of the people has seriously denied that this disease cannot even affect any blacks. Africa, Gambia, the hot weather, they think that this could not survive. This virus will not be able to survive in the Gambia because of the heat. So what I'm asking you today is, what are some of the difficulties do you think Gambians are having with the COVID guidelines?
It is important to understand that a nation comprises many human beings with different level of consciousness. And that is the difficulty. So in addressing a problem, you are also addressing mindsets.
Okay.
And that is the difficulty that one encounters when you deal with a problem like COVID-19. Fundamentally, we are dealing with a living organism. And we are not all scientists. We do not know how illnesses come. And in many instances, we have not built up the culture of knowledge where we ask questions and try to find answers. The human being who is confronted with a situation must first ask why, and then try to find answers. And the answers usually will come from people who know.
Right.
We must be receptive to them. So principally, since this illness is a pandemic, the starting point was to understand its origin and how it was moving across the globe. So we are talking about a knowledge-based research and interest. Not everybody has that. So our first problem was dealing with a problem that had not arrived, a problem that we are told will come, and therefore we had to make preparation for what we could not see with our naked eyes, whose impact we could not also feel in the bosom of our hearts, because you've played two important instruments in the lives of the people in the Gambia. And anybody who would have really been in tune with what you played would say, well, we are now dealing with lives lost, lives of Muslims and Christians, lives of people dear to us, lives of mothers and fathers, of religious leaders, of people we treasure, people we do not want to lose.
Right.
So that injects realism. So at the starting point, that was not the case. This was foreign, and those who told us that it was coming were, of course, professionals.
Yes.
And the Minister of Health indicating to Parliament that the pandemic is real, that we needed to prepare for it, and something had to be done at the borders to prepare for it. What? Well, it was discovered that when a person is infected, the usual symptoms would be increase in temperature, body temperature, beyond 7 degrees. Therefore, this was a means of at least starting the preventive strategy. Since it is something coming from the outside, then the land, the sea, and the air would be the ways that a person will leave a country where the problem exists to come to the Gambia. So
Yes.
in that sense, then, one ought to prepare at the border to detect what may be what we call COVID-19. So if we really did that fully, then it would have meant that the preventive strategy would have been more effective, because all those people who were coming would be checked, and those who would have some symptoms that could identify with the illness could be set aside for a protective testing and eventually to help them to deal with the illness itself. But we all remembered that that very evening, after the minister told Parliament that the problem exists in the Gambia, we were told that one person had it. And that was the starting point of an emergency. That was the alarm bell that rang, that many people did not want to hear, and therefore ignored to a certain degree. Yes, emergency measures are necessary, regulations can be put in place, advice could be given by senior authorities, but unless the mindset registers what was being said and a whole population take the matter seriously, then all those advices would just be as good as words on paper.
Right.
And I must say that that is really what was the starting point of what is now a national disaster, because many lives are being lost that could have been avoided. Could have been avoided by adopting the preventive strategy, and we had not adopted to the full. So as we now speak, the society is trying to come back to its senses, to accept that COVID-19 is a reality. Lives could be lost because of it, and loved ones could be lost because of it, and therefore we should begin to listen to those who know. And this is where government should play a major part in involving people who have the expertise, whether pensioners or not, but people who have had a background in handling such a pandemic, who are Gambians, should be assembled together and constantly allowed to take the airwaves to speak to the population in all the languages, so that it is constantly put in our ears that COVID-19 is a killer and is an enemy that ought to be fought, but we can't fight it without changing our mindsets. And that is what is absolutely necessary today.
Right. That's why we have you here today, sir. That's why we appreciate you coming in. Okay. For that being said, the country is being locked down for almost 6 months. And we don't know, with the increased number of cases and death, we don't know when we will open fully. The country will open fully. With that, do the cabinet have any budget to help the people that goes out to find food and so many things for their family? Because Gambians go out every day to hustle to provide food, daily living for their families. So is there any budget the National Assembly put aside to help them?
Yes, you see, this is where all Gambians should begin to understand what is at stake and what is on the ground. First and foremost, we must understand what a state of emergency is. And since March, the government has been declaring states of emergency. And clearly, in the first instance, it was to tell the Gambian people that certain conditions exist which, if left unaddressed, will lead to a state of emergency. But then afterwards, is to actually declare that a state of emergency exists. And what that means is that there is a state of alert, that something exists in the country that can threaten life. And as long as it poses an existential threat, then something ought to be done. That's what the state of emergency is all about.
Right.
Once you declare that, Section 34 of the Constitution, the president alone cannot continue an state of emergency without extension by the National Assembly.
Yes.
And of course, that should be done within 7 days if the National Assembly is sitting, or 21 days if the National Assembly is not sitting. But if the National Assembly fails to react in extending a state of emergency, then of course the president, after 21 days, may also declare another 21 days, so there will be continuous declaration without extension. But if you declare once and there's an extension, then the matter falls within the ambit of the National Assembly to control and direct. And it means that the president can only deal with the state of emergency by relying on Section 35 of the Constitution, which allows for a law to be created to tell the president what measures he should take or she should take, whoever the president is, to deal with the state of emergency. Now we have the emergency powers, and that is that issue that you raise is fundamental. The emergency powers states that the president can make regulations to deal with the situation as long as the regulations are reasonably justifiable in order to deal with the situation that exists. But it emphasizes that in dealing with that situation, the president must always make sure that services and what the human beings need to live on must always be accessible, available, and affordable. That is why the earlier phase, the issue of the essential commodities being put at certain levels in terms of prices, and that those prices must be controlled. So that element is there in terms of controlling certain prices. When the implementation is taking place to the full, well, those are issues that we need to look at. But they also look at the advice given by WHO that the easiest way to transmit the illness is through the closeness, the person who has the illness and the person who does not have. And that closeness could lead to transfer by that person coughing or sneezing, or after coughing and sneezing, having the droplets in one's hand and giving hand to someone else, or touching something and the person comes and touches it, because it is yet to be fully established how long this organism lives, because it's a living organism. So as a living organism, it survives on surfaces, etc., and can also travel with the coughing that comes, the droplets that come from the coughing, and therefore hits the other person's nostrils or mouth, etc. So in short, there is an idea of how the organism can move from one host and enter another person and be hosted by that person. So what do we do? That is what brought about the preventive strategy.
Right.
That we have the safe distancing. We must wash our hands. We must put on this mask. So these are ways and means of preventing the illness. But then you are dealing with mindset. So from the very beginning, the amount of civic education, which has no partisan consideration, that should have been conducted so that we know that this is about Gambia. It's one Gambia trying to save the life of the people of the Gambia. It's one nation struggling to survive against an enemy, the illness. That should have been the mindset of every Gambian.
Yes.
Now, we did not achieve that way of thinking. Now, second is, how do you actually implement those regulations? If you say markets come at this time and we will spray at this time, transports, we must spray them, garages, we must spray them. Who should be spraying? Of course, in the regulation, it talks about the councils. In terms of also monitoring the regulation, it talks about the police and the council. So you are talking about human resources. Are they available? Were they available at that time? Did we assess them? Of course, we did not assess them. The same situation is, you need material resources. You need sprays. Do we have them? Do you have that was not necessarily available. So it meant our first shortcoming was the failure to bring every force together, the councils, the police, the Ministry of Health, so that they sit down, assess the quantity of spray that you need, the material that you use to spray you need, the gadgets that you need. If they were not available, how do we make them available? If the councils do not have the financial wherewithal to provide them, how do they come up with a recommendation from the local government, the regional administration, regional government, so that the budget, give it to finance, and the finance will actually bring that budget to the National Assembly for approval. So that we know that you need this quantity of spray to be able to deal with the illness. You need this number of inspectors to do it, etc., etc., etc. So that is what you call then budgeting for COVID-19. Health will talk about the number of thermometers you need at the borders, who should handle them, and then you calculate the cost. You will also talk about the technicians, laboratories that should be established, the testing facilities. So all that budget ought to be done with emergency as an emergency budget. We call it supplementary appropriation requested, so that that also comes. First and foremost, we should in fact be able to handle such emergencies by having a contingency budget, and that can always come to Parliament that we need a contingency budget. You keep it there in anticipation that a crisis will come. But to address your question, fundamentally, when government sees that, you need to close places that you call they are not essential, because you must maintain essential services according to the Emergency Powers Act. You must ensure that services and what we need to survive must always be available. So it means you cannot close shops that sell food, etc. So if you allow those places to open up and you feel that other places need to be closed down because you don't consider them to be essential, those people must survive.
Yes.
So you must have an agency that monitors what those people are losing, calculate it, and you are also able to give them subvention so that you'll be able to compensate them for the losses they are making in order for them to be able to survive. Well, that should be a program, but it has not been a program. But we must insist that it becomes a program, because that's what the Emergency Powers Act actually says. Now, to address the question you've raised, what government has done, 845 million has been utilized to purchase rice, oil, and sugar, which has been distributed. According to them, the actual estimation would be over 80-something thousand households. They calculated that there are over 201,000 households that are actually living in poverty. And you need to address all those households in terms of food distribution, but they've been concentrating on food distribution on households that they classify as vulnerable groups. The World Bank has also allocated another $31 million, which NANA is now distributing. Recently seen NANA actually starting a program using 10 million, which is about $10 million, which is about $500 million, in 30 districts in the country, ensuring that about 84,000 households would be covered, and that they would receive a sum of $6,000, $3,000 between the month of July and August, and another $3,000 between the month of September and October, to add that to this rice, sugar, and oil that had already or is still being distributed. So essentially, you have that type of aid program and different agencies intervening. There are also promises here and there, World Food Program, government. So many programs are on in terms of the distribution of food. What impact? Well, eventually the programs would have to be monitored, evaluated, for us to be able to know the impact assessment made. Because in the National Assembly, we have a Committee on Health and Disaster, and obviously that will be its role ultimately to invite the NDMA, the National Disaster Management Agency, to come and give a report as to what has been done and to find whether we can study the impact on the ground. So essentially, these are developments that have taken place.
Many Gambians are complaining about the rice, oil, whatever is being offered. Oh, okay. It's been offered to them. I'm sorry. It's echo. I'm echoing. Can you hear me clearly, sir?
I can hear you clearly.
Okay. Many Gambians are complaining about the rice that's been distributed. They haven't received any. And it's been said that they have received it. So that's their complaint at this moment. They haven't received what is being told to them.
Yes, and that is what is important, that now, because the distribution is taking place through the use of coupons.
Right.
So anybody who has received a coupon and you have not received what is in the coupon, it is your duty to give that report to your National Assembly member so that that matter will be looked into by the National Assembly committee that is responsible for that.
Okay.
So we have a direct system through which we monitor any wrongdoing under the current circumstances, because of the fact that all the distribution is now taking place through the use of coupons. And the name of the person should be on the coupon, and at the same time, the quantity of food that the household should receive. So what is important is that whenever one receives a coupon, one must note down all the things that is supposed to be provided. And if you're from the alcalde of the village, make sure that you go back to that alcalde and say that, well, this is the state of play. I'm supposed to receive this. I have not. And the alcalde is the first port of call. The alcalde should actually bring that to the notice of NDMA and also notice of the National Assembly member in any particular area.
Okay. Some time ago, oh, this is not. Some time ago, we saw the Minister of Health, Honorable Samate. He came to the National Assembly. I'm sorry, I sound so weird. He was so concerned of the corruption going on in his ministry after the money that you guys approved for the COVID-19. Is there any oversight in place now since then?
Well, obviously, I think you have seen during the supplementary appropriation debate that all those issues came to the fore, that you cannot have business as usual with this National Assembly because all the laws are there for the National Assembly to ensure that we check everything that comes to the National Assembly. What people must bear in mind is that you have three roles when it comes to the budget. The budget is brought to the National Assembly by the executive, by the Minister of Finance, and he must defend, or she, whoever the minister is, must defend the budget. And the National Assembly will scrutinize the estimates, scrutinize the bill, and then once it is passed, then that is the allocation that must come from the consolidated fund and implemented by the budgetary agencies that are involved. The third phase is the role of the Auditor General, that the Auditor General is supposed to audit all accounts to see that what is provided for as expenditure is actually expended as provided for. And if there is a default in any way, the Auditor General has powers to surcharge anybody who has abused public funds and also to refer a matter to the police for prosecution if it has gone to a level where surcharging is not the answer. So if the system works that way, then you can address the issue of abuse of public funds.
Oh, yes. Okay, everybody, anybody that comes in late, we have Honorable Halifa Sallah. Here, we are discussing mainly about the COVID-19 to the Gambian people in the Gambia and diaspora. Please share, let's share this message, important information he's giving us. We have the opportunity today, let's use it and use it well. Honorable Halifa Sallah, let's go to the education sector. I'm not going to compare America, where I am, with Gambia, but education sector, the education of the children right now is a problem. Even here, we are doing the visual learning where they go online and connect. Gambia, the government provided this program they do on TV and radio. And that does not serve all the children, I could say. Gambians, they raise concern a little bit, and it was all in English. But we have Arabic students too. We have the madrasa. We have so many institutions that should be getting some kind of education. Okay. So, in your opinion, how can the government do this effectively so that there will be no child left behind?
Well, this is where dealing with an emergency requires concerted effort, not only for one day, but on a daily basis. You must start from somewhere. Now, looking at the system, you have basic, you have secondary, and you also have tertiary institutions. You have vocational training institutions. You have other institutions where the training program has some religious orientation. So it means that all these institutions have, at the level of the Ministry of Basic Education, a directorate that is responsible for monitoring the day-to-day programs of each of those institutions. At the level, the tertiary level, you have the Ministry of Higher Education. So it is important, and it should have been done at the initial phase to work out a COVID-19 educational response, which will be looked at. If you are to do anything in terms of government, you must start with a policy, you must come with a strategic plan, you must come up with a program, and you must cost the program, you must know your human resources, you must know your material resources, you must know your financial resources, and that is where the parliament comes in. When you prepare that we need this, we need to divert the education budget and meet it, implement it in this way. What way? That yes, we need to give tutoring through radio because not everybody has television, but do we all have radios in our homes? The poor people may not have radio in their homes, but now you may use some mobile phone that can provide radio services. So the question is, who are so poor, so vulnerable, that do not have radios in their homes? That should be identified immediately.
Right.
Everyone from school. The teacher has a telephone. It lives in the community. The principal lives in the community, or the headmaster. So it means that you should have given those people assignments, at least to receive information from those who are in their classes, those who cannot afford a radio. So in that sense, within a week, you'll be able to assess all those people who are being left behind, and then you can provide the facility that is needed. It's a budget that you will need to say that, well, the cheapest radios would be this, and then we can provide it to the homes that need it. Obviously, somebody will not go and take a cheap radio just for the sake of just getting a cheap radio when you can have a radio that is better because you have the wherewithal. So it means that only the poor people, the poorest, will actually want those facilities, and therefore nobody will be left behind.
Right.
In the vein, those people who are carrying out the Quranic lessons, well, you will assist them because maybe these are their means of income. And how do you assist them to survive? Then you may involve them in this program of distribution of food, rice, etc., so that they also will be able to survive during that period, whilst they are unable to carry on the type of training that they are doing. So in short, you will address each community, and they will be able to address and help the parents, so that their children will continue learning, at home. It is a system that must be created to address a new reality, and human beings are always capable of doing that.
Right. Yeah. So I think the government
and the National Assembly can play a major role because we have a committee that deals with education,
right,
and a committee that would monitor exactly what system is operative, why it is failing, and then to be able to make recommendations at the level of the National Assembly. We can clearly, from the executive to the National Assembly to the community, this is how you respond to emergencies.
Yes. Yes. Okay. With the current situation, loss of revenue, and a declined GDP. GDP right now. What should the government now put in place for a quick economic recovery?
Well, we are dealing with two elements here. We are dealing with an emergency response, and we are also dealing with a macroeconomic situation, a country looking at its tourism, looking at its agriculture, looking at its industries, and then indicate that the COVID-19 has almost paralyzed some of the institutions that should be able to build up the productive base of the economy. Right. You can look at those ones and you can address them. But let's look at first the emergency response. You see, emergency response is an opportunity. Under normal circumstances, you will not find certain agencies providing grants for an institution to provide money to the poor. You will find government having the opportunity to divert what would have been a debt repayment fund, and you are given at least latitude to defer that payment, and instead of paying those billions to the aid agencies, to the loan givers, now you can use it to deal with COVID-19. And that's what the minister said. The 845 million was something that was moved from the debt repayment budget in order to provide food, etc. So this is an opportunity.
Right.
Because the whole world knows that you are running into a problem. So it means that you can utilize what you would have had to pay. And it is the fact that you can put it into areas that can now build up your, for example, health system. If you identify all the needs of the regions in having effective testing for COVID-19, and you build up the lab facility that will not only serve for testing COVID-19, because we hope to conquer the pandemic, and the lab facility will remain, the trained technicians will remain, and now you will be using the lab facilities to test other illnesses that may be harmful to our community. So this is the time that we use the emergency to build the institutions of the state. You talk about education. Before, people do not get education through television. They do not get it through radio. They do not get it through internet. And this is an opportunity to build up a whole education system which will be virtual in one way, which you would not have had the opportunity. So it means that we just have to be creative and make the necessary plans so that the strategic plans will be clear, the programs will be clear, and say that this is our COVID-19 response. Yes. And with that, you come to Parliament, budgets can be reviewed, revised. Look at us. How many people have been actually traveling? So the whole travel budget of the cabinet ministers, of the parliamentarians, of the top civil servants
can be used.
Will no longer be used for that purpose. So COVID-19 is a threat, but it's also an opportunity. So in that sense, how we should really see that, yes, this is very harmful. This is a disease. This is doing terrible things. But at the same time, as human beings, we can be creative. We can transform that threat into real opportunities, and those opportunities will, in the long term, serve to cushion the economy itself. Because the more you build the education base, the more you build your health base, you are preparing people who will be able to also build the productive base. For example, you have the opportunity now of giving $6,000 to 84,000
families.
Now, we have a rainy season where the rain had actually been very gentle so far. We've had the serious disasters that were anticipated, not that they will not come, but it's gentle. Now, with proper planning of agriculture, 6,000 we are giving it as money, to help them during the difficult times. But just imagine, if we were creative, this could have been fertilizer for poor farmers who cannot afford, and it could have come at the right time of the beginning of the season. So So this is what I'm talking about. We cannot look at we learn from the past. So you will see that through this, you could have had those farmers really planting what they need to be fed. So it means that at the end of the rainy season, you would have had farmers with harvests that will enable them to live better lives. So when we look at then agriculture as a part of GDP, you will see that it has increased beyond what anticipated, twice, 3, 4 times as much, and it covers what you are losing from tourism. So in short then, what you need is comprehensive planning in order to know exactly how to build up your productive base. In short, you need a COVID-19 response, economic response.
Yes. Uncle Halifa, I always call you Uncle Halifa. I'm just going to call you Uncle Halifa.
Thank you.
You are always concerned about us, we the Gambians. But there's another concern with all this fight and all this awareness you are raising about COVID. Still, Gambians are complaining about the number that is given to them, 1025, in case they feel like they suspect they have COVID. Those people, when they call them, they could not get in touch with them. Even they get in touch with them, they will tell them to go to a particular place by themselves. And if they have to do that, let's say they are not tested yet, but they suspect that they can have it. These people don't have enough money to hire a special car to take them to this place. And they have to join a passenger car. That is not still safe for the community. So this one is personally for you, not National Assembly. What would you solve this kind of a problem? What awareness? What would you tell the people of the Gambia to do?
Well, not only the people, but as you said, it's a response by the state. We are talking about people, we are also talking about the state. And having been involved, I can remember a situation where in London Corner, somebody was tested positive. But you can see that even to get the family to go and do testing was difficult.
Thanks. Thank you.
Because at that material time, they did not understand the illness. When they were very happy that they have gone to do the test. And many people in the community would not have gone to call 1025.
Right.
Because they did not see the need to do that. They did not even believe in the illness. So when you tell me today that somebody is calling 1025 and is complaining that he or she did not get proper response, I will say that is progress. It is showing that the people are now taking the illness seriously. And they want a response of the government. Now, the second problem is this, that what you are saying, what I am saying, what everybody is saying should be listened to now by the health planners because they are overtasked. We know that those people who are now doing the testing are overloaded. We can say that COVID-19 is underreported and underrecorded. And many tests are taking place where the people will not be able to get the results for days by virtue of the fact that those people in the laboratories are overworking and the facilities are not enough. So it means that the public should understand that those people in the laboratories are risking their lives. Many of them, doctors, nurses, have actually contracted the illness and had to go to quarantine and stay for some time in order to build up their recovery levels. So in short, our health system at a given stage was even threatened by the fact that those who were providing the services were actually being discouraged by their families. that it's not worth it, that they should give up, the pay is not there, and many of them were beginning to be ostracized and stigmatized because some of their colleagues were in quarantine by their tens and by their dozens. So we must understand the complexity of the illness and what it has created in terms of our health system and how we must help that health system not to break down. And to prevent it from breaking down, it means that we must transform these health workers into heroes and heroines. We know their shortcomings, but we cannot continue to blame them to the point that they feel that it's not even worth it because we are sacrificing for people who are not even appreciating us. So their lives are at risk because they are directly there with the virus, with the enemy. So in that sense, then, we must change our mindset, know exactly how to protect ourselves, and the protection is to know that if we suspect anybody to be COVID-19 infected, we must be able to guide that person to engage in self-isolation. And then how do we help that person to get to call 1025, as I said, or contact those people who will be able to do the testing? Well, let's be wise about it. Let's make sure that we put on our mask, we put the sanitizers, we carry all the necessary conditions, and even inform the driver that this is the reality. And then we should all become real human beings. Even if you are a driver and somebody comes to you, you do not look at the money, you look at saving lives at that material. Yes, that we must build that culture of caring for each other, and to really help whenever we see that the issue is COVID-19. We take that approach and inspire those people who are behind 1025 so that they will just have the stamina to move on, to know that they are saving Gambia, and they are as important as the president, as a minister, as a National Assembly member, because all of them are supposed to serve the nation to save lives. So if they are doing that directly, then they should consider themselves as important as those people.
Yes. Just give me a glimpse. We Gambians, we don't have much, but we like to worship God. We are believers. The mosque and the churches, is there any better way we can be practiced just to open? Maybe any idea that at least they can open or just continue to close? What would you say about that? Just the mosque. Gambians are complaining. They just want to worship. They don't have anything, but they just want to worship.
Yes, you see, I have said that from the very beginning. I think most people have heard me say that whenever you're coming up with a policy, you must take into consideration the sensitivities of your community.
Yes.
Their views, their cultural views, all other opinions that matter. And then in coming up with the program, you make sure that you help them to do what they believe is indispensable, but do it in a manner that will be in concert with what will protect their health. So you can say that mosques and churches, you have the leaders of the mosques, the committees of the mosque. You know, those people can always be in the mosques. And somebody who wants to give charity will just come and leave it there. And that will go to those people who have been there to take care of the mosque, or the same thing with the churches. So you see that a situation will exist.
That's smart.
You don't have to have the people there, because you know that social contact will lead to illness, and no priest, no imam will want his congregation to ultimately indict him that you are the one who caused the death, you know, of this or that person. So therefore, with proper sensitization, they will have the interest of saving their congregations, but their congregations will also know that that priest, that imam need, you know, survival of some sort, need support of some sort, and it's a clergy relying on those institutions, so those institutions can still continue to operate but operate in a manner that they will not foul the safe distance that is necessary to be able to fight the illness.
Yes. Thank you. Uncle Halifa, I cannot leave you. I have one more question. This one, I will not leave you until with this pandemic. Numbers are rising up, situation, things are getting really worse. And we have very important elections coming, 2021. So, given that Gambia, we do in-person voting. We do in-person voting. And we really need that highly turnout of votes. What safety protocols should we plan right now for in-person voting?
Yes, you see that in actual fact, anywhere that you have to do things, you will always find a solution to do that.
Okay.
Number one, you need is safe distance. And safe distance is 2 meters. So if you have to vote for a day, you vote for a day. If you have to vote for 10 days, you vote for 10 days. What is important is to ensure that people vote and that no one steals the vote. So it means that you should have enough security, because if all the parties are participating and you ensure that each party's representative to be able to supervise the situation, to see that what is done is the right thing, well, it's all organization. There is nothing that cannot be done as long as we are organized. So I'm 100% convinced that we have the capacity to hold an election under COVID-19. COVID-19 cannot defeat democracy.
Okay.
It cannot defeat the republic.
Okay, because I'm afraid, not me in person, Gambians are afraid. It could be a possibility elections will be cancelled.
Well, as I said, COVID-19 cannot defeat democracy.
Democracy.
Yes, and it cannot defeat the sovereignty of the people. We will put our minds to it and see that what should be done is done.
But what about we the diasporians? What is your opinion for us to be able to also vote?
Well, that is a right that has already been guaranteed on even the 1997 Constitution and the Elections Act. It's just that it was not implemented. But I'm sure that with the type of consciousness that has developed now, nobody can stop the diaspora from voting.
From voting.
Registration and from voting.
Yes. Could you give us any advice about this COVID-19 in any local language?
Mba commencé la man nek kawala.
Abaraka. Abaraka.
Ye kol kalamuta anyanta kalamuta nyami. Akuma hata molia kalamuta ko ni ko COVID-19 abe balukan ne. Dingol be balukan nyami. Wolle nyanta kalamuta lo ko wol membe dunia kono membe balukan e ka balu mo men yalon ko e balukan e ka balukan fengol la hadama dingo ka balu fengol la covid non ka balu fengol la to bawon tol bebe baluka en ni be dino kono e ka wala mo rahmu o femme be balukane bala fa ba akunot woto bawo ko membe baloy ye bala fa so to me ya lonko wole ba kendla ye balu woto fo nga ñoo kele pour que balu fo hadama de ngol ye fingol kele pour que no ke la balorngoti fingol hadama dingo kele kanne pour que no kano pour kake ala balu fingoti oto ke bawo hadama dingo ye hakkilo soto hammi o fingol la woto hadama dingo le nyanta kela kuti dunya kono misala hakkilo tamandi asi fingol be no me yalon ko asi kurango sabwan woto covid-19 man nyanna kela jakal kuti hadama dingol le nyanta lonna ko nin kambent ngake kilinti ngena hakkilo tamandi nganyo so hakkilo la beyo song hakkilo me yalon ko adita nga songama ngalon ko nyingle mu toñati nyingle mu londo te men sim bonde ntol be nga songama woto batabe bolam mo be kunna covid-19 ba nolale kumata saji ngalo kura ngolete abe balu kanne bat mo ngola symbole warata covid-19 bawo ay hakkilo soto covid-19 ma hakkilo soto hada madi ngosi londo soto no covid-19 man londo soto no bawo joro mo soto no memba fala woto ngake kilin mol membe mararola wala alonko nyanta jorongol sabula bankoma nyanta sabula bankoma nyanta sabula bankoma nyanta jorongol sabula bankoma pour nga kele mol fana alonko jorongo men tambita jorom beti wala woto ngena hakkilo tamandi nyanta mune kela ni nga wolon doron beñing bata bonde lo mol kon
abe talala ha be bolom aduno be bolom tan
so ba nañu baye xel lu ne li nga xamne moy febar luy dund la ñu ne tam ngey dund ñu ne adina li ci dund bari na te luy dund rek ñu ne ki la isi ci adina amna yermande pour yow xam ngeen li seen diine wax buguma melni ma ngay wax mbiri christian wala mbiri serigne wande yeen xam ngeen li seen diine wax ne suñu rahman rek moy ne lepp lañu yërem bon na su fekkee ne lepp lañu yërem te ku nekk ci ñun wara dund bon nak fokk ñu filante ñun muy dund covid-19 légui mu lekk ñu itam légui ñu ray ko lekk leneen gannaaw loolu mo am ci aduna nak nañu bayyi xel ni nit gannaaw dafa am xel mom dara waru ko jaax ndaxte luy dund rek moko upp xel bon nak nañu jëfo suñu xel xamne nguur gi warna ut borom xam-xam warna ut gannaay yo xamne moy xex covid-19 warna ut xaaliss bo xamne moy xex covid-19 su ko defé lool dina dimbalé nguur gi pour ñu mëna dimbalé nit ñi tam nañu xamne seen xel suñu ci namé be xam liñ wara def rek té def ko rek mu ngi melni dina génné choono ci suñu bopp.
Thank you. Uncle Halifa, thank you. We appreciate you coming in. And we are honored.
Thank you very much.
We are very pleased. The service you are doing for us. One day, I hope we all grow up. We, the people watching you, grow up to be like you, to stand up for our own people. When you told me, Binta, I will be there. If it's national, if it's a national interest, I'll be there. That put tears in my eye. And everybody here, they are all texting and watching. Whatever you do for Gambia, you are doing it for us. We appreciate you. We totally appreciate you. And I'm gonna let you go. You had given us all the time you can. With all the great answers, there will be no more answers more than what you gave us. Sir, we salute you. Thank you, and bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I am so... Are you guys not grateful? Are you guys not thankful we have Halifa? I am so grateful. And I hope you guys are too. Let's take the advice, share, and we work together. Not just the government can do this fight. We, the people, have to be part of this fight. All the governments in the world are having issue with this fight. So let's share, let's watch, let's fight, let's protect our people, our older people, just like I had the conversation last time with the doctors. They say people that are aged, people with pre-existing conditions, maybe the young ones too. If you are not concerned about yourself, you should be concerned about the people I just mentioned. A few years ago, I lost 2 women. That means a lot. They mean a lot to me. My grandmother, 11 years ago. My mother, 2 years ago. The pain, the agony, the sadness, sometimes it pains so much, you try to block it. You pretend to block it. I know somebody said, yes, I lost my mother, I lost my grandmother. I feel the same pain. You cannot cry enough. If today I should have one more chance for them to be alive, I will protect them with everything I could. These guidelines, put this mask on to protect those people. Wash your hands. Please stay at home if you don't have nothing else to do out there. Please protect yourself, your own family, your neighbors, your community, and the nation. It's serious. We don't want to bury our people, our older people that pray for us every morning, that teaches us our culture and tradition. We do not want to lose those people. Mandinkas will say, "Nko na korda taungo alin kane banfala, wala na kebalt, na kebal alin kane banfala." Mol benji bekam, mini yelong ni mama muso, mini yelong ni wuluba, nimbi man satellite chance killing dinta, ay nyunu dinna nam bi, mbe kuo bele kela ke protect. Mbe mask dunale, mbe mbulo kulale, mba make sure la family, nimmi manjari katadula, mba fole lal kanatadula. Alin kanan troba. So Uncle Halifa Sallah nga appreciate le. Aka wori na kuola le. Ninku keta. Uncle Halifa ya mwe. Aka bori jele. Hani moto ma samba na singo sa samba. Wala tinanko. Binto bantaba network. Nka jele kuole kejanne. Every Sunday. Bara kuo mimbu konying. I should go for the right man. Nyenta tala mole normal. Minketa kate. Andu nata alatentu. Ngate soto. Binna kachabe danna waleto. Aya kata nyele. Ntala question ol be nyini nkala no. What a possible la. Nte fanang nina timo hakilindi mo emin soto. Mfanang nga wale soto sambali ena. Bara dunia mu domandoma walde. Maybe bindi mala question ol answer. Sila kote. Nsala question ol nyini nkano. Alimbe mobe tentula. Mbali jaila. Alinga duwa talali ye. Nga duwa mfangoli ye. Alaman tankala. Nyunkurang la nama mimma. Nimmin fanan tata kono. Saya ye tara kono. Alama nema ninka farkele. Alama ibenna malaika hinan telfe. Mini be kurang kono. Alama man satalaya. Abondi kang. ay ke bala ja kabo doronte kalon njaban ki janalo anyi nalo binta kan sakalo unening uncle Halifa Sallah tagele ke kubut honorable Halifa Sallah member of parliament ko kubut ke lang etini sakupulo bare ninne taka chance lombonis ni pochinol ne sinjan advice ine hin kumaya memak ine hin kumaya so njiba katen pampaga pulo mba fala la baraka bye Binto Bantaba network ala nga nyomuta nga nyo bambu nga nyo yaya hormoni mbunya kono ciao ala baraka